Okay, it's podcast time, people. I made the news this week. I was news this week. I'm very excited to share my I was a news story. We're Almost Agreement at gmail.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, YouTube, go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out some of the things we've got going on. Hollaroo is upon us May 17th. You should come get in on it. And that's why I made the news, because we're going to have booze at Hollaroo's. That was my Dr. Seuss moment, everybody. You're welcome. Almost Agreement at gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. All your favorite podcast writers. Like, friend, share, follow. Tweet us to your friends. I guess it's X us to your friends nowadays. Text it. Do whatever you can do to help us spread the word. We're going to keep doing our show. We're going to keep talking about things we talk about. And we're going to maybe do some more stuff from there. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to do a show. Here we go.
Hey.
What's happening with you?
Oh, not much.
What's new? What's the word? Tell me something exciting in your life.
Nada.
Okay. I got to do it.
Anything new and exciting in your life?
Yes!
Okay. Well, tell me all about it. Tell us all about it.
Well, okay, so I joked in the intro there, Hollaroo's going to have booze. It's not official yet, but many thanks to the one and only Lauren Ryder for helping draft a change in city ordinance to allow us the option of applying to get alcohol service on the street during Hollaroo. There's lots of important bits and bobs, and I got to talk to I got to actually be a segment on. I guess I was more of an interview than a reporter on the segment with Scott's taping earlier. So if you listen to their podcast tomorrow, you'll hear me talk more about it there. But long and short of it is, I contest that the current ordinance and the way alcohol service and special events is used is dumb. Basically, all the events that you know of that are the big marquee events that we have around town, Rossini Festival coming up here in a couple of weeks, Sundown in the City back when we had it, different events in the World's Fair Park, different parts of World's Fair Park. North Shore Park has a special thing. And so everywhere that is a city property that for special event purposes has ever served alcohol, excluding the zoo, it's a whole different ball of wax in the zoo, has had a specific carve-out in city code. So the city of Knoxville, it is illegal to have an open container anywhere in the city of Knoxville, except with permitting on a special event on Gay Street, except with permitting on a special event at the intersection of Jackson and Central, which is the old city, except in Market Square, except in this park, except in that park, except in this park.
All right.
And so for my end of it, I went to, when we did the first Hollaroo last year, I just said, hey, I want to do booze. And special events is like, you can't. I was like, what do you mean I can't? They do it here and they do it there. It's like, it's like, that's just not an option for where you want to do your event. And I was like, well, that's dumb. And so I emailed or texted Lauren Ryder and said, hey, this is dumb. Why can't we do this? Me stupidly thinking in February of 2024 that I would get the ordinance change and fix it up and running by April of 2024. Right. And so that's how long we've been poking at this. And there's been a bunch of different pitfalls here and there. And there's a whole, probably 5-part special series we could do with Lauren and some of the people in the city on why and how it took and takes as long and different stuff like that. But so essentially what Lauren put up was, hey, instead of asking for a carve-out for Happy Holler for Seth, because that's what he wants, why don't we just dump all this special exception and say, with proper permitting, with your special events, with all the things that it takes to put a special event on the city of Knoxville, if you want to include beer, you can add the steps of getting the beer permit, doing all the parts and pieces to have a beer permit, stuff like that, but just exclude these geographic specials.
All right.
Let's just get rid of all that and say, I don't care. It's a city property. You want to put a special event on that is a place that you're allowed to do a special event in and of its own right.
Right. You
can now do alcohol service if you do the other parts and pieces that are required to get alcohol service on it. So it's just to use a word I'm not often excited to use, but it is more equitable in what Lauren has put up. It's not that my neighborhood gets it and this one doesn't. It's any neighborhood, as long as you go through the process, which I will attest. And if you haven't heard me complain before, it is a process, and you have to be serious about it. You can't just kind of flippantly try to throw something together. you can do alcohol service as part of it.
Yeah.
Now, there's a 10,000 little isms on this that people like are overthinking. Like if you want to do a block party on your street at your
That's
house,
what I was about to say. They don't want to make it as simple as somebody wanting to throw up a block party.
Well, the thing about it,
if I just put up yellow tape, we'll block it off and we can just have a
and
party.
you can do
right?
that, and it's totally illegal. But
Totally legal or illegal?
Illegal. Like
Okay,
like this, you'd have to go through special events. You have to go through and hire police officers a day and stuff like that. But one of the little caveats to all this that's important is that if you're going to do a block party, like if you're just going to do a neighborhood event that's like just for your neighbors kind of thing, we're shutting the street down, we're doing a block party. Would you sell beer at it anyway? No. It'd be a BYOB event, which it is already. I would guarantee you that 90% of block parties that bother with getting the city to shut a street down for them, they're all boozing it up anyway, which is totally illegal. But we just don't. Nobody really cares because it's stupid to get bent out of shape.
No, because it's not really like organized drinking. It's like, hey, go to this house to get all your beer.
Right, but it's like coolers on the curb of
Right.
Johnny's yard, and we all
Right,
go
but it's
over to Johnny's
like you
house.
said, it's everybody kind of bringing their own. So it's
Right, but it's still technically a legal open container, and this changes nothing.
true, right.
This ordinance changes nothing in that conversation.
Right.
Because if you were to go get your beer permit for the event, you would have to have a nonprofit involved, and the nonprofit has to sell the beer.
right.
So if you wanted to do a neighborhood block party where it was legal for you to walk up and down your street with a beer in your hand, somebody would have to sell them that beer. And I can't think of a neighborhood block party that somebody's like, oh sure, I'll pony up a $10 for a pint of Miller Lite to walk up and down my own street. I'm going to walk out my front door with a beer and have a good time. So anyway, that's an irrelevant little subsection of the thing that's out there. And so, one of the caveats that's always been there has been if it's a public street like Central, like Gay Street, you cannot charge a fee for attendance. Which that's not a new thing. That was in the old code. But that's the thing that was confusing. Like I went and spoke. If you want to go look it up, I was on the CTV for the city council meeting. I'll be on the next one, which is a week and a half from today, because it has to pass in 2 readings to make sure that I can do my part to help make sure it passes. Like the thing that was confusing is that nothing changes that currently is. It's not taking away any options for people that already have them. It's just adding the options for the rest of us.
Right.
And so a lot of this discussion got into some weird little details about there's a new CEO that the city hired for the zoo because the zoo is a property of the city of Knoxville, which I did learn the zoo has a special exemption on a city business essentially holding its own beer permit.
But I don't think they sell it normally. Don't they just do Boo at
Right,
the Zoo?
just for events and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah, I think Boo at the Zoo is kind of the only thing they do it.
Oh, they're doing a bunch of events. They do.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. God, what is it called?
Like walk with the animals.
It's like
things
wine.
Like that.
It's like wine and roar or something like that. They do. They have a wine specific one, and they have a couple of different ones that are boozing at the zoo. But they just hold a permit to serve alcohol. It's an on premise permit. It's just that
They only use it for special events.
Right. But essentially, for practically speaking,
it's an open permit. They don't have to apply for each event.
Right, but technically speaking, it's like I'm trying to think. I mean, Union Jack's is the closest example because they have the biggest patio that I can think of in town. I'm sure there's somebody that I'm missing. But it's like the zoo is a bar restaurant with a giant patio. It's just their patio. The zoo's patio has enclosures with tigers in it, where Union Jack's enclosures don't have any enclosures with tigers in it. They do have some great weird stuff that happens on the other side of the fence in Fourth Creek every once in a while, so there is some wildlife and stuff like that goes on at Union Jack's, but that's beside the point. And so, I got there was Charles Thomas was out of town, so only had 8 of the 9 members. I got a 701 vote. One being Andrew Roberto abstained. He was a little off-put by how many amendments, and this was just it's real in the weeds, stupid stuff. Long story short, Lauren had put the official draft out that got put on the agenda and realized after submitting it that another one of the weird specific exceptions is Lakeshore Park. Lakeshore Park is run by a third party where the other city parks are run by the city parks and rec department. And since it has that special sub-designation, it needed to make sure that carve-out stayed in there for them. Because at Lakeshore, you can rent a lawn at Lakeshore to do a wedding,
right,
and you can close that to public consumption. Like, you could not let any other people in. You can be like, this is closed for a private event. And, like, so some of the stuff that Lakeshore specifically has that other parks don't. She had to make sure that language is in there. When she submitted it, one of the other, I don't even know, I'm not sure if it's one of the other counselors or somebody with the board at Lakeshore had noticed it and said, hey, this is throwing out our ability to do stuff. And to which Lauren was like, that's not what I was trying to do here. I will put an amendment together to bring that back in.
I'm sure it's somewhere in the weeds. I'm trying to figure out why this would close them out, because, like you said, it basically is opening up the
well, because it would, but it would, but it changed. But again, with the Lakeshore being functionally different, then it's not a park run by the city the same way as like Suttree Landing Park down on the south side, or even Crutch Park right off of Market Square.
Right.
That's just a standard park run by the city parks department. Lakeshore being, I think there's some third-party entity that is both city, county, and private combined, and so the Lakeshore's got some weirdism to it.
Yeah.
And so because it's a weird entity that operates the park, it's not that the city can't give permission. The city's giving permission to a third party to do a thing. Well, this, I guess, I don't know. That's a good question.
They're like the Knox Youth Sports Organization. I think their office is at Lakeshore. So I'm sure they're probably part of like that whole.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand your question. I don't know the truth of the specific of the answer, other than,
like I said. So I was like, that's probably sure it's somewhere in the weeds of the wording of it.
Well, so I was getting ready to say the new CEO of the zoo showed up. A little freaked out because he's not familiar with Knoxville yet. He's only been here for a couple months, and he was concerned that this was taking his ability to do the special events that they do away. And it's one of those that's a weird wording issue more than anything for his perspective, because he just has a regular beer permit. He doesn't have he doesn't get special event permits. Now, when the Tennessee Valley Fair is in the Chilhowie Park parking lot, because Chilhowie Park is owned by the city. But when when the fair comes and we're all going to see Kid Rock or whatever perform there, and we're getting our Budweisers, Chilhowie Park has to get a special event permit. And Chilhowie Park was one of the places that had the special carve out in the current ordinance, which the new ordinance just gets rid of that and just says, you're a park in the city, you can do it with proper permitting.
Yeah.
And so then there was some confusion about some other stuff that already existed. Again, one of the other parts that Lauren was trying to do with it, which is irrelevant to me other than I get my main want out of this, is she's trying to clean up some other stuff. Like apparently there was a special carve-out for Cumberland for extended patios. And so not a special event, but the way the code worded it was that they called it special event extended patio. But it's not a special event. It's on game days. We used to do it when I was at the O'Charlie's right down there. We would take that whole lot between us and the liquor store and close that off and extend that patio. And at some point in time, the city ordinance only for Cumberland read that it had to be attached to the building, which I was fine for O'Charlie's, but apparently there were other places that had a thing where they had their main bar restaurant, but in the backside of their parking lot, they were putting a tent up. But then they had parking between it and stuff like that. And so the way they wrote it was that it had to be connected to the building. But it called it a special event extended patio, and like it was blended into the same spot in code that she was trying to rewrite and clean up. And so basically what she was trying to do is take all this stuff of decades of piling on and just clean it up in a concise little one.
Right.
And
but it sounded like it was changing a whole lot, I guess, from Roberto's perspective.
Right. And
well, like, hold on.
And it's not even that it was changing a whole lot. It's that the difference in what was presented to the council for the agenda and her day of amendment
gotcha.
changed those so much that he didn't feel like he had enough time to make a decision on it, which is frustrating because he's the one that asked me during the meeting about my timeline. He's like, so what's the timeline for this for you? I was like, we're on a pretty strict timeline here. Like, first reading today, second reading here in a couple weeks. A couple days after that second reading, as I have to get my beer permit turned in, I got to have all my paperwork and stuff like that ready before the end of March, so that I can be on April's beer board meeting. And then, because if I miss April's beer board meeting, my event will be before May's beer board meeting. And so he's like, okay. I moved to postpone, like almost immediately. It's like, cool, I see that you have a particular need for this to hurry up. Let's postpone this thing. It's like, okay. Yeah, and that's fine. But I talked to him afterwards, and he said a couple times that when I was under questioning or whatever you want to call it, he kept referencing to the event that I worked on with him, and it's like I only did I worked on them a little bit with the Brewers Fest that we were doing at the West Store.
Okay.
And that was that extended patio permit that we were talking about, trying to figure out the timing of what I had to do to get an extended patio permit.
Yeah.
Which is still kind of weird because like I have a beer permit, I have a patio, but to put a fence that makes my patio half my parking lot for a day, I basically have to go get a new beer permit for the day. That's how that,
because you're reapproving a different space, basically.
right? But that's how. But I have to go through the same full beer permitting process, which is a pain in the butt. And I think that's what he was remembering I had talked to him about because that's a pain in the butt, and I didn't like having to deal with that, but that's just the way it is. But he kept, like, he was like, yeah, I remember working with you on this. I was like, no, this is a different thing, buddy.
All right. Well, I mean, at least he had some recollection.
Yeah.
Hopefully positive.
Yeah, and but I talked to him a little bit afterwards and stuff like that. He's like, I need to talk to my constituents about it. It's like, it's okay. I got a 701, man. I'm fine. Like I didn't get if it was a 5-3 day of, I'd be a little bit more worried about here in 2 weeks getting my second one passed through. Or if it was if the eventual would have been a 5-3 or a 4-4 because of the night that it was, that delay, his one for a delay would have been more likely to happen.
You just need a simple majority.
I need a quorum majority.
Right, they have to have a quorum.
Right. So it's got to be I've got to be a majority of the body, regardless of how many people are there. So I mean, technically, it's the same thing. Only 8 of the 9 showed up. I needed to get to 5.
Yeah.
But had only 7 of the 9 showed up, I still had to get to 5.
Right.
Like 4 is not good enough, even though that's the majority of the people there. It had to be the majority of the possibility of the body. But it was fun. I mean, it was interesting. For a person who likes to chat my ass off, I certainly don't like to do it in a room full of people. I was nervous. As all get out. Everybody told me I was fine, but I was like, I could feel my leg shaking hard, and I thought my voice was breaking, and they said, no, you're fine. I was like, you didn't see my leg shaking? Nope. Okay.
Do you even get a podium to stand behind? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But it's not like it's not, well, I guess it does have a thing. It's kind of, I was sitting there while we were like, what was funny about it is like, it's a very light agenda, which I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing for me. Probably not a bad thing. I won't say it was a good thing, but it probably wasn't a negative because it was the only thing they spent any time talking about. Like it was literally Pledge Allegiance, agenda items, or like the first agenda item was something about like the different committees had to do a quick report on things that they've done. And like, I don't know how many committees the city council has, but only 3 of them had met since the last city council meeting. And so it was just a brief like, oh, our next meeting's here. We talked about this. We'll have more reporting on this later. And then it was like agenda item 11A. And then the Will, I forgot your name, Will, but I appreciate you because I know you listen to the show. Will reads off the agenda item, and then America Cannon hosts the meeting. That she is the president of the meeting situation, whatever the title is. She runs city council. Any discussion? Or seeing no request for discussion. I go ahead and take a vote. All in favor say aye. All in favor, like, it was just like 10 items straight. 8-0, 8-0, 8-0, 8-0. And then it gets to 12A, my item. And it's the guy Will reads the whole thing off. Thank you, Will. And it says, American Kid, it says, it looks like we have one citizen who wants to speak on this. One Lord Seth Barber. She referenced me as Lord Barber. Yes. And to which I got to the podium and I said, Seth Barber, Rocky Hill, Tennessee. I don't have to talk at all. You guys have been running pretty smooth tonight. Let's just make this an 8-0 and I'll get out of your guys' way. But since I'm here, I had this whole thing written out that I was gonna speak on, but it's like, look, there's some cool events that this city has done. I really have enjoyed seeing what Market Square and Gay Street, Old City have done over the last couple of decades. I remember when it sucked. I remember going into the Old City in the early aughts and nobody being there. We used to go to the bar and come out of the bar at midnight and there were 0 people in Market Square. And I think, Sundown in the City and some of the other events that have been going on downtown have made a great impact on that. And I just want the opportunity as a promoter to put on an event to grow my neighborhood like those families and those people did to really get the city back up and running. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Nice.
It did not come out nearly that smoothly, at least the way I felt about it. But everybody else said I was okay. But they went, then it was like lights up, everybody's microphones start lighting up. They all wanted to talk about it. And it was questions and talking. And Lauren introduced her amendments because she needed to, and that was a whole thing. But it was interesting. It's fun. It was super dorky. Like I'm sitting here, like afterwards, I stop and talk to Chief Noel, make some jokes with him about the Compass podcast and how he's said to me a couple times he's not a big fan of the Scott only shows. They're a little hard to listen to. And I was like, hey man, I figured out how we could fix that. He's like, what's that? I was like, well, come sit in on the show with us. That's how we can make the show more exciting because you'll be on it. And he kind of giggled at that. And I talked to Mary Cannon for a little bit. I talked to the different city councilors a little bit. Ran into another couple of people whom are listening to the show. I apologize again, listener. You told me your name and I forgot up there. Terrible. But I chatted with him a little bit about my ADU idea that I want to do because he does a bunch of work with the developers as far as zoning and coding and all that kind of stuff. And that's why he was there. He had an agenda item. He's like, I probably won't have to speak, but I want to be here in case they have any questions. Right. And his was one of the ones that they're like, this thing, all in favor say aye, nays, 8-0, moving on. Like that was his agenda item. So I got to talk to him for a little bit. So, and Kendra from Special Events was down there among other people. So I was in my peoples. I was with my people. So that was fun. But super stressful, and it's super long time coming, and hopefully, unless something crazy happens, the ordinance will be changed in a week and a half's time, and we can move forward with the biggest, baddest party for Holaroo that ever has been. It's like, I don't know, it's crazy. Like, it's fun. Like, it's a weird part of it because Rusty from Blank Magazine, who's kind of our musical director for Holaroo, we've been working on planning, and he wants his stage where the alcohol is because he knows it's better for the bands to have people drinking beers around them. People are more energetic, a little bit more loose, and get a little crazier. The bands feed off that crazy. The crazy feeds off the bands, and they go back and forth, and everything's better. And so it's like we're putting the stage here. He's like, we don't have alcohol on the street. I was like, we will. He's like, okay, but like the whole time he's always planning on not.
Right.
And like it got to the point.
Hedge your bets.
It got to the point where it started to hurt my feelings. I was like, man, this is happening. And
I'm sure he's been around long enough to know.
Right, that's exactly. Like
you're asking for a change to city ordinance. Like, yeah, okay, good luck.
I don't know. I got interviewed by one of Compass's reporters at the city council thing, and he's like, "What made you think you could do this?" I was like, "I don't know. Dumb enough to ask the questions, man." Like that was like that's always been my thing. Like I feel bad for being like that. That's my quote in Compass. Like if you read the article on it in Compass, he's talking to me about it, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but my quote was literally, I'm dumb enough to ask. Like it might have been hard, it might have been impossible, but
there's a lot of doors out there that are able to be open if you just knock on them.
Well, but the thing I've learned is you got to knock on them more than once.
That may be true. Yeah.
That's the thing I've learned about a lot of this stuff.
Right. Any good door-to-door salesman isn't gonna rest on knocking on that front door once.
Yeah, and I think the other part too is that you just got to take a little time to figure it out on your own right. Like,
oh, definitely.
Like I think part of it that made, like, again, I'm forever grateful to Lauren for her efforts on this because part of it that made it possible is when I brought it to her, she's like, I don't know, and then we started talking about it, and it's like, we already do it. Why do we do it there and not here? And then it was like, well, let's look at some other cities. And we went and looked at Nashville's code on it, and we looked at Memphis's code on it. And I didn't even think about it till way down the line. But like, think about Beale Street. Beale Street has exception to state law.
But I think they are
because of its historical designation or whatever.
Right. But they're roped off, and I think there was a big kind of uproar about it maybe like 4 or 5 years ago because they started charging to get into this roped off area of Beale Street.
Well, because one of the things
I haven't experienced myself. It's what I've been told.
I was on Beale Street
to like Beale Street proper.
We were on Beale Street at like 6:00 in the morning when we were playing. When we were in the band and going to the Cotton Bowl, we stayed in Memphis on the way to the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah,
we didn't stay, but for like 18 hours. Like we got there. Got to the hotel. Everybody, was in the hotel for the night. We went around. We got like a quarter of a day in Memphis to spend time in Memphis, and then we got on the buses and made our way to Dallas. But I remember a couple of us went down to Beale Street at like 6 in the morning because.
So you did.
Well, the hotel was only like 2 blocks away anyway, so it was like right there. But like apparently, like Beale Street, like the rules, like state law, you have to close by 3 a.m. Full stop.
Right.
But on Beale Street, you just have to be closed for at least an hour a day, and it doesn't matter which hour it is.
Interesting.
And so apparently, like there's like a whole section of Beale Street that like 3 bars in a row.
Just kind of rotate.
One closes at 4 and opens at 5. Another one closes at 5, opens at 6. Another one closes at 6, opens at 7. So if you want to keep drinking all night, you just go to the next bar, and by the time you get through those 2 or 3 bars, the first one, you can go back to the first one and keep going. But like that's but it's like that thing exists. So if that thing exists, why can't what I want exist? And so, like that was the other part of it too. Is actually like going online and finding all these different ordinances and reading through them. And really, it's like really the real number 1A question is there something in state law that precludes this action?
Right.
Because anything in the ordinance is subject to change by the council, as long as it's not in the council, as long as it's not a charter item in the like, as long as there wasn't a charter item that says no open container in Tennessee, which it doesn't, or no open container in the city of Knoxville ever for any reason. That's not in the charter, so it didn't have to be a charter amendment. It was just an ordinance. It's a light rule.
Right. Well, I didn't realize apparently we or whoever had to go. I guess UT had to go to the state legislature to get approval to have liquor sales at Neyland Stadium.
Yes.
I thought it had already passed, and then I heard, I guess, in the past couple of weeks that they were there asking for them basically for a change.
Well, and they had to get some.
That's right. That's state property, so I guess they've got to do the same thing of getting ordinance or whatever, get state changes to allow it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I'd be curious. That rabbit hole. And who was the? I need to meet that guy. That'd be a fun person.
Well, apparently, it does have to get approved at the state level.
Well, I mean, any liquor, any sale of liquor goes through the state.
Okay, I guess maybe that's what it was.
Right. The state Tennessee Commission, or Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission. It's weird because the Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission, by definition, is what we call wine and liquor. Counties and local municipalities issue beer permits. The state of Tennessee issues liquor licenses. That's the lay version of it. But
so I wonder if they had to go to the state to get beer at Neyland last year or whatever.
Their beer permits through the city of Knoxville because they had to go through, or RMARC and UT had to go through the hearing process of serving underage people.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I felt bad. Like I got there in time. There was a little market that apparently had some trouble with some underage sales, and they had to appear before the beer board to show their remediation plan and all that kind of stuff. It's just part of the thing if you get caught selling underage.
Right.
And I was sitting here listening to the owner and their lawyer, doing their thing, and I'm just sitting there in the back of my head. It's like, yeah, unless you're UT, if you're UT, you don't have to worry about it. Like I like everything. Like I was like, I have a mission. I'm here for this. Keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Keep your head down. Don't mess things up for yourself. But the whole time I'm like, unless you're UT, UT doesn't have to worry about that. And so anyway, that's that. I don't know. I'm super excited about it. It's going to make a huge difference to our event. And hopefully, if anybody out there wants to do an event in their neighborhood and needs a little help navigating it, I work incredibly cheap. And at least one of my hemp laws is now behind what they call behind the budget. If you know what that means.
Can't say I know it.
So essentially what it is it's the I believe it's the Briggs bill that was super scary. Speaking of Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission. It went through a couple of the committees, but it got to the Finance Committee in the Senate, and I guess, the budget and money is what the Finance Committees focus on, and there's not room in the budget currently because for whatever it's going to cost to do this.
Okay.
And so they basically said, we're not saying no to it, but we're saying it's on pause until the new budget gets released, and if there's money in the new budget to make room, we'll reassess. Which basically that's kind of fingers crossed. It's kind of a bill killer. It's really realistically because the budget already came out. The new budget doesn't come out till fiscal year 25-26, and so the new budget doesn't really come out until like May anyway. So by May, session's going to end, and this bill's going to die because it will be dead before the budget. Like it won't be passed before the budget comes out. Session will end. Anything that hasn't been passed before session ends.
Because any budget change to do now, it wouldn't be approved because the new budget hasn't been approved yet.
And so basically, it's the game. I don't know. The game for the Briggs and the people who are wanting to pass this are going to be they need to get with the governor's office, make room in the budget for it, and then reintroduce it next year, and we do this again. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if the hemp guys and the people who like me who are strongly involved in it can make it a politically charged enough issue that they just back off.
I'm assuming it's a requirement that there has to be a fiscal note on any bill that has anything to do with, or that would change money or whatever.
Yeah.
Whether it be incoming or outgoing.
Yeah. I mean, any bill has to have a fiscal note, and generally, if it's something,
even if it has no monetary change,
right? That's literally the note.
Fiscal note is nil.
Right. The note is there is no foreseeable cost or
N/A. It's not
applicable. Every bill has it in some way or form.
That makes sense.
So, I mean, crazy early 25 for me is starting to look good. We'll see. I'm not celebrating anything yet. You shared a very interesting one about this was a more national story, but it was an AP article. Some voters are pushing back on lawmakers' efforts to overturn citizen ballot initiatives.
Yeah. I remember hearing about this when I was visiting Missouri, that I guess on that ballot, where one of the ballot items they could vote on was, I can't remember exactly, but it was basically like raising the minimum wage and like approving like a week's sick pay for people. And apparently it got voted through. And apparently the Missouri legislature has recently tried to overturn the voter-approved initiative. Which I'm not really sure how they work. I think you mentioned that Tennessee doesn't even have them.
And I don't know this for a fact. I got this inference from when I talked to Briggs. If you try to listen to that mess that was the Briggs episode, he basically said, because when I was talking to Briggs a little bit, it was kind of like where's this coming from? Do you think he and I discussed if this was I asked him, I was like, if we had a good poll, Actually, he brought it up. Basically, he's like, I think if he said something along the lines of, I think if we could measure it correctly, the majority of Tennesseans would be down with would want medical marijuana in the state of Tennessee. He's like, recreational, I'm not so sure on. I pushed back and I was like, I guarantee you, there's a majority of Tennesseans want medical, and I would say the majority of Tennesseans, real Tennesseans, are meh, they don't care. They're ambivalent on the topic. And then I would say the majority of people that care want it. And so you could, or I guess the better way to say it would be, I would say a significant minority of Tennesseans want weed to be illegal. Because I would say the vast majority could care neither way. They just don't care if it's legal or not. They don't see it as a net negative. They do see the positives of tax revenues and stuff like that, but it's not something if asked that they would say yes or no to. They'd say whatever. If it passed, I wouldn't be mad. If it doesn't pass, I'm not going to be mad. That's my take on the majority of people. That's the majority of people nationally, probably worldwide, probably just don't care. But the people
on most people's day-to-day basis, it doesn't really affect them.
But I think I would argue that the people that do care want it strongly outweigh don't want it of the people that do care. That'd be my argument on that. Anyway, the point of that story is, in talking to Briggs about that, he said the phrase something along the lines of, "We don't do ballot initiatives in Tennessee." Because I kind of made one or both of us were kind of in. Again, the connection was terrible. It sucked as an interview, but the way I took it was that the idea was, if we put "Do we want to make weed legal in Tennessee" on the ballot, was what this kind of joke question we were working around, and he kept making sure to be clear that that's not how Tennessee works. Tennessee wouldn't do it that way. Tennessee doesn't do things that way.
Yeah.
And I infer that to mean ballot initiatives, at least from the legislature, don't exist in Tennessee. Like, they're not going to do one. So my perfect solution to the ills of government is not an option in Tennessee without probably a constitutional change.
I mean, I'd say you could probably, you talked to a lot of the legislators, or a good number of them. I'd say it's something that you could probably come to them with, like a ballot initiative item with, you've got enough signatures. Just as an issue, that's something they would have to then present themselves.
Right.
But you could at least, show them, it's like, hey, I've got 15,000 signatures on this thing that
so if
has to do with this new bill.
Right, that'll be one of the things that I run on in District 18 when I run against Elaine Davis in a couple of years. I will run on, you bring me, how many people live in Tennessee?
No idea. 3 million.
10% of the 10% of the adult population, 7.228 million in 2024 is the estimated population. So if you can bring me adult population is probably 4 million. You can bring me 400,000 signatures, I will write a bill on that, whatever that 400,000 signatures wants. I will introduce a bill that way, because that's the only way you're going to do it in Tennessee. Because it's
definitely a high hurdle.
Right. Well, no, I'm just saying that I don't think that legally exists. I think that's me doing that offer. If I were a legislature, that would be my deal. I'd be like, I will reserve 2 of my possible bills a year for an initiative if you can get me enough signatures. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if I disagree with it. If you bring me enough signatures, I will put it to the floor. I don't know. I just like that's 400,000 people is a huge number.
Right.
Do 400,000 people vote in Tennessee?
I don't think it has to be percentage of population. It has to be more percentage of voting population.
Well, it's whatever I make up for this example. Now, if I wanted to create a new party in the state of Tennessee, it's a percentage of the number of people that voted in the last gubernatorial election or something like that.
Right.
And so that's a crazy weird number. But it's still a huge number to get people to sign up for. And so anyway, that's something that I would like to see I don't know. I think we should have ballot. I think we should be able to have a ballot initiative. It should be a high hurdle. It shouldn't be something simple.
Right.
The problem with a ballot initiative, though, is how do you put the initiative in the legal language side of it so that the legislature isn't writing it on what is inferred from the statement. Like, staying on the hemp weed conversation, like if a ballot initiative was put on the ballot and the phrasing is something like, do you want legal access to marijuana in the state of Tennessee? Yes or no? And yes passes. Well, there's a lot of ways it can be legal. Who gets to decide the actual structure of it from there? Right. That would go back to the legislature, who obviously doesn't want that, or who presumably doesn't want it, and so it'd be very easy for them to write it in a very restrictive way, even though it holds true to the question. So if the question was, do you want it or not, and the answer is yes, well, we'll give you an option that makes yes true, but it sucks. And so it'd have to be one of those, like, how do you get a citizen ballot initiative that has both the proper language to be put into code without legislators having to get their hands on it.
Right. And you would almost have to have legislation beforehand. I really thought about that, but yet as a way to, if you had a ballot initiative and you had it in good legalese, is there still a way for the legislature them writing?
The ballot initiative would have to be written as a bill.
Right.
And it's like, this is written as a bill. The populace voted on it. The Constitution of the state says you have to insert this, if so. Now, I think I didn't get to finish reading that whole article that you sent, but if I'm understanding the inference correctly, it's that last year, Missouri does have a ballot initiative system. Last year,
they voted on it in November, yeah.
But a couple of years ago, they put some, like the citizen ballot initiative went through, and the current legislation is writing laws to take that ballot initiative apart. Not that they're taking ballot initiatives away, but whatever that ballot initiative was asking for away.
It sounds like they're trying to undo what the voters just voted for in the most recent election, which, like you said, I think it's a ballot initiative that they brought up 2 years ago that probably has to go through first reading, second reading. There's
a couple of different, technically, functionally, that's the job of the legislation. Or legislators, that's their job. Their job is to write bills, pass law, blah, 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 blah. And that writing bills, passing laws can go up to and include adjusting a law that was passed last year, or even a law that was passed earlier this year. And so what it sounds to me like from that article is the ballot initiative passed a law. The current legislature is now passing laws to take apart that ballot initiative. Now, it's a presumably very unpopular thing to do.
It sounded like they basically the legislature voted to undo this particular ballot item that just got approved.
Right, which is right. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
But the thing is that should they be able to do that? yes. Should they functionally do that? No. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I get they make adjustments to previous bills. You know,
Well, it's because I mean, like it's the timing makes it even worse for the current legislators in Missouri that are doing this. But I mean, the hemp one we've been discussing is a perfect example. 2 years ago, Briggs and other senators and legislators from the state of Tennessee passed a hemp regulation law, and now 2 years later, they're writing and passing a new one that adjusts the one they just did. Like that's what they do. They update for the generous use of the term.
Right.
Now, to update a law that just hit the books that the citizenry voted on is a pretty fucking crazy thing to do from a political population standpoint. Like I feel like that'd be like you've got to be real happy and real content and real secure in your seat to think you're going to win another election after you immediately throw something out that the population voted on.
Well, most of them know they got 2 years till their next election.
And I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm just saying, like that's ballsy.
They're probably just like, good luck.
But I mean, hell, if it's enough people, if it was enough people to win a ballot initiative, that's probably enough people to pull a recall election.
Yeah, I didn't see how much of the state voted for. But then it gets even weirder when you're trying to recall certain legislators in particular districts.
Sure. Oh, there's a push for Betsy. If you want to get rid of Betsy, there's a petition. There's an official petition going out to recall Betsy Henderson right now. There's just like, fuck it. We're not going to wait for the school board to remove her as chair. We're going to take her seat from her.
Really?
Go out. Michael Sherman, I think. Michael P. Sherman. Michael Sherman. No, that's the guy from the dog. The genius dog and the kid.
Genius dog and the kid.
Cartoon.
Oh, no.
Michael P. Sherman.
I'm blanking.
Or was it P? Oh, it was P. Sherman Wallaby Way. That was the. I'm mixing all sorts of cartoons up. P. Sherman P. Sherman was the name on the goggles in Finding Nemo. P. Sherman Wallaby Way, Sydney, Australia.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
But I want to say, what is it? It was a time travel. It was a genius dog with the kid, and they did time travel.
Not sure.
Damn it! It's a great cartoon. It's good cartoon. And I hate time travel stuff. Like time travel is not my jam. Yeah.
Which one? Movie or TV show?
Both.
Okay.
It's a long running. It was a TV show for a long time, but they did a movie of it a couple years ago.
Genius dog. Yeah, it's escaping me.
But it was a fully animated. I think they actually rebooted the cartoon too. They did a new series of the cartoon. That's gonna drive me crazy now. I keep Rocky and Bullwinkle. No,
Oh, the amazing. No, that's not it.
There it is, Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
I don't think it was a show I ever watched as a kid. I was vaguely aware of it. I think it was after our time.
90s.
Well, it was a little after the time I stopped watching that type of cartoons.
I remember hustling home from Bearden High School to watch Pokemon. Shut your hole.
I remember being in high school and laughing about our friend's younger brother that was like all into Pokemon. Because you can hear him just like, Pikachu! He was in that young, like elementary, like high energy. And of course, he just loved Pikachu anyway. So we would get a kick out of him just like getting all high energy.
And it was a great show. Like that's the old one right there.
Okay, yeah.
No,
Vaguely
that's just
aware
an
of
old. Whatever. Anyway, great show. You should all watch it. Forget politics. I don't know. To go back to your to go back to the story is like it seems like a daring political move when that was just a popularly elected item.
Right.
But on the should you be able to or not, yes, they absolutely should be able to. Like it seems kind of ridiculous to say the legislators can't legislate.
Well, I wonder when it passed in November if it was something to where January 1st this goes into law.
Yeah, I don't know.
It sounds like I'm not even sure if it already gotten signed into law or if they were just kind of preemptively trying to overturn it before it went into effect, July 1st or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
And we'll see what happens. That itsy one about Ohio, and I guess they recently had a ballot initiative or not on a ballot initiative, sorry. With their recreational, they're trying to change it to where I think it's more the biggest uproar is people's ability to grow a certain amount of plants. That I think they changed something that upped it to like 12 plants for like a household of 2 people or more. You couldn't be living by yourself and I guess grow 12 plants all in a certain time frame.
Without a grower's license or something like
that? For personal use.
Right.
But I guess now they've knocked that back down to like 6, so people are
that's crazy
about that.
So,
it's changing some of their other laws, and they're like, hey, we just approved, recreational. I think they had medical for a couple of years prior. But it sounds like they're trying to put a few more restrictions into and I think they're adding a couple like taxes to it as well.
So in Tennessee, apparently, any farmer who goes to a farmer's market is not obliged to take in sales tax. So if I have a apple orchard and I go seasonally pick all my apples and I have bushels of apples and I take them down to Market Square for the farmer's market and sell you apples, I am not obliged to collect sales tax from you.
Is that presuming you grew all those that produce
right.
within the state?
It's right. my grown. It's right. The number 1A assumption on that is it's my grown product.
Right.
Which means theoretically, the way hemp law sits right now, if I have a grower's permit and I have a field and I am growing for commercial sale, I can sell it commercially, but I can also sell it in a farmer's market format, tax-free.
Maybe.
I don't know that there's an exemption. Austin was telling me about this earlier today, and I was like, then why don't we own a farm? I should buy a farm. Buy into a farm and have 1% stake in a farm. That means I'm the farmer, legally speaking, and then we could sell all our flour tax-free. I feel like he's wrong on this. It just feels wrong.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's something.
Even with the straight apple one, like even in the non-hemp example, like it still feels wrong.
I mean, I think it would be classified as like a home. Well, there's laws on home brewing as well. Because I think as a home brewer, you can only brew like more than like 10 gallons a year.
But you're not allowed to sell it either.
Right. That's what I'm thinking, that this would fall under that as well.
Right, but you're not allowed to sell it. I was just, the one in Ohio, sure, what you were talking about, the Ohio thing, but the way Austin describes it is that if you go to a farmer's market...
No, I'm saying, yeah, if you were a home brewer and went to the Knoxville farmer's market, I would think that beer would be kind of classified as, this flour, basically, that you're trying to sell. I would think it would kind of be in the line with that as far as you can't go to a farmer's market and sell your own beer or your own liquor.
Right, but but the other part of that one too, though, is like I think the distinction is the process. You're not farming beer; you're farming hops or barley, but you're refining it into beer in the process. Now, if you have the farm that grows the barley and the hops and stuff, and you combine that on site, it's still not a farm good. You know what I'm saying? That's a product. You've made that into a new product.
Well, even hemp flour, you're still processing it. You're not just chopping the whole plant and taking the plant to. You're still processing it to an extent and turning it into not a wholly different product.
Not any more than you're taking a bushel of, or that you're taking the apples off a tree, or you're taking the stalk off the corn. Like what's the difference in a corn cob and a nice healthy bud? Bud nug. I don't know I'm not cool with the phrasing. You know what I'm talking about. Like functionally.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm curious to death about this because I'm like we might be buying a farm if that's true. Because then we could sell it. We'd sell all other stuff with sales tax and stuff like that, but we don't have to charge sales tax for that.
Don't know. That's a good question for a lawyer.
Yeah.
And the ag department.
They don't have time. There's not enough of them. They can't afford it. Anyway, that's a separate sub joke. Oh, yeah. So, I don't know. What else is going on that we're talking about? Alpha Kappa Alpha regional.
What?
I don't know. AKA's regional regional homecoming. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. Basically, it's the black girl sorority.
Okay.
They do. I can't remember what the name of that. It was hosted here this year. this week, and it did like $4 or $5 million of direct economic impact to the city of Knoxville.
Oh yeah,
that's fucking awesome. And it's like, because apparently like Kamala Harris is an AKA sister. I don't know what they call it, like sororitas.
I don't know. Is there a term for people that were members of sororities?
Yeah, the possessive of a sorority member.
Yeah.
Sororitum. I don't know. It's all Greek to me.
Can't say I've ever seen or heard the word, but it makes sense that that's a thing.
Yeah, and so anyway, that was here this week, and it was a significant financial impact, and so we'll take that. So that's what I got. That's what I got in my local stories.
Hell yeah.
Some other stuff going on in the state. I can't remember. There's another like sub voucher bill. I got an email from. I
saw an article. It made it sound like that the actual like framework of how the new voucher bill is actually going to work. The article was at least claiming to kind of like lay out we now know details about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or I guess they've at least released more information about how it's going to work.
Yeah,
I thought I sent you one on another education bill.
Oh, the Barkley Marathon. I need to check on see the update on that. That was running when I was searching.
I think there was a story today that said nobody finished it this year.
I mean, apparently they're very upset because like a dozen people finished it last year, and that's not okay by the Barkley organizers.
Yeah, apparently the guy changes the route a little bit every year.
Every year, like significantly every year, and it's like, I mean, it's the same patch of woods. I've been up there on Frozen Head and stuff like that, but like the whole thing is it's off trail. It's not. There's no trail.
Right.
There's like I think they use books.
Yeah, they've got books at spots that you're supposed to go to. I don't know if you get like compass coordinates, because I've also wondered like how they don't keep people from like bunching up and all going to the same spot. Yeah, but basically I think you have a race number, but you've got to go to that particular spot. You're assigned your race number, and then you tear out that page number of your same race number. That proves how you've made it to the different spots. But I think it's like... Well, like each loop is like 20 miles?
20 to 26 miles, yes.
Yeah.
And then one of them is... one of the people that is running it is one of the organizers, so he knows where he's going. So he's the only person out in it. That if you're out in it and find them, you can, like, that's your, not guide. He's not going to tell you where to go, but he's who you can ask questions and help get reoriented and stuff like that. But he's the only one, like, he finishes the loops. And so he goes and does the loop with everybody, but not with everybody. He's just out on them.
You sure about that?
So that article was saying.
Huh. Yeah. I know, like, the guy that, like, designs it. It's apparently, like, the way they start the race every day is, like, he finishes a cigarette,
right,
and then he blows a conch shell.
Yeah, and so it's like, and so like to me, like it's brutal. I'm not trying to say it's not a brutal run, but the difficulty of the Barkley is as much figuring out where the fuck you're going as it is actually being able to go there.
I'd say it's more the physical. I'd say Tasha's podcast had. I think he's the only guy that's ever like won it twice, and I think he had a chance to win it like a third year, but it was one he talks about it on the show that he apparently lost almost his pages. Had been doing it for like 2 days, and then just somehow like lost his Ziploc bag that had all the pages in it.
Oh, that's rough.
And so you can't prove that you did your lap. So he was like, I'm not going to finish. No.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and just call it in now and go take a nice healthy shit.
Yeah.
Because it's also, I think you just have like 24 hours or whatever. Like you sleep as little or as much as you want. It's all up to you and how quickly you want to try to get your shit done.
I think you've got 16 hours a lap, I think is what they said. You have to be back. You have to be back within 16 hours of when you left, but the clock runs the whole time. But like they were talking about, like people that finished the first loop would go back out 10, 15 minutes later, or some would stay for a couple hours, get some rest, get something to eat, and then go back out. Clock's still running while you're in camp, quote unquote.
Okay.
But they mark when you leave camp. And you have, or no, I'm sorry. You have to. It's every 16 hours. You have to finish a loop. So you can stay as long as you want, but you have to get back out and do another loop, and be back in 16 hours. So if you stay for 2 hours, you only have 14 hours to do a loop. If you stay for an hour, you only have 15 hours or whatever.
Yeah,
it's a great documentary. The documentary on it's hilarious.
Yeah, I've seen it once before.
It's pretty phenomenal.
It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently they had really nice weather last year.
My favorite, that was that was one of the things they were talking about in the article, is that it was in late April last year, and so they're like, well, we're going to move it up to make the weather worse, and then it was a gorgeous weekend last weekend. Or it was
still probably pretty muddy.
But it was a pretty nice week though, temperature wise. Like good to be out
true.
there running and stuff. It wasn't cold or hot. It was comfortable.
Well, I think they're up there a little bit in elevation.
Yeah,
But I think it's supposed to kind of mirror the general area that there was like an attempted escape from Brushy Mountain Prison.
right. It's the guy that shot JFK or Martin Luther King.
Was he the ones that escaped?
Yeah,
James Earl.
Right. So the joke
James
is
Earl Ray?
right. The guy the guy that created the Barclay. As I understand the story, is James Earl Ray was being held in Brushy Mountain, escaped, and 72 hours later or something like that, he was found like 2 miles from the prison. And so the original organizer of the Barclay Marathon said, in 72 hours, I could get a whole hell of a lot farther than that. And that's the idea, is that idiot couldn't get more than a couple miles from the prison in 72 hours. I could get 100 miles from the prison in 72 hours.
Yeah.
And so now we have a 100-mile race out in the deep backwoods of Frozen Head State Park. And nobody's died yet, at least that I know of, at least. So that's a win.
Don't believe so.
But I mean, they said there were people that were lost on trail for 24 hours and finally made it back, and they didn't make the loop time, so they were disqualified, but they made it back.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I'm glad they made it back, I guess.
Yeah, there's probably been at least a few searches for people that did.
Yeah.
They were probably just like huddled up, just passed out. An emergency blanket. They're like, no, I needed to go to sleep. Like I was getting delusional.
Like if I was any good at it, I would like to try to walk it one loop. I like getting out there in it, but it's got to be.
So I think a lot of it, you're kind of like climbing hillsides for a good majority.
But
of
it's
it.
off trail too, and so it's
Right.
like just brush and brambles and blah. It's got to be
Technically,
brutal.
that's breaking national park rules. You're not supposed to go off trail because until you get some fucked up erosion.
Maybe it's
Maybe they get exemptions. But they only allow, I think when I was reading an article, they only allow 40 people. It's like 20 from North America and 20 internationally. But you have to write an essay, like telling to the organizer basically of like why you want to run it that year.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's fun. The wild and wonderful March Madness is upon us. Did you do a bracket this year?
I've never done a bracket.
I do.
Maybe once in like middle school because I had friends that were doing it. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I think I saw an article today that it's like 1% of brackets are still valid now because I guess of some upsets.
Oh yeah, there's always somebody. All right, so I was pulling up my Facebook just to see what's up. The one and only Mayor Jacobs has challenged to the one and only Tim Waltz, a charity wrestling event. Do you know? I know where this comes from. I know exactly where this comes from.
Wow. I've never heard anything about this.
So Gavin Newsom started a podcast.
I'm sure he's got a podcast, yeah.
So apparently Waltz was on there, and they were just talking about whatever they were talking about, and Waltz made a reference to basically made this reference to I could kick their ass. I don't remember who they were talking about or what they were saying, but it was essentially like Waltz basically said, hey, I could kick any Republican's ass, more or less, is what he was saying. And so Mayor Jacobs is taking that challenge. Okay. Let's do it.
Okay. I guess it's giving him some national coverage.
Which is interesting because Congressman Rose has announced he's going to run for governor.
I just saw that story. I guess he's announced.
Which I don't know. Like, I really want to know what Blackbird's doing now. Because Blackburn, I mean, like Rose has to know if Blackburn's like, has to know that it's not good for him to run against Blackburn.
Well, you've heard that
right, the official announcement.
She hasn't made an official, okay.
But I'm just saying, like, I would think that he would have some people that might have some insight on how serious she's thinking about it.
You would think, but
and she was seriously enough thinking about it that Jacobs backed out. I don't know if he's officially backed out because he hasn't officially put a petition in yet. But
right. But would it be a bad thing to have a couple like prominent front runners?
Yes.
Is it?
Well, I mean, bad for whom?
For the party, I guess.
Yes. Because at some point, their egos are going to come into play. And instead of, this is how awesome we are as a party, this is how bad that guy is, or this is about how bad she is. It's going to come out at some point.
I could see a way you could spin it in the positive, though. If you're able to kind of have them not kind of work against each other to an extent, or work less against each other.
I mean, I could see that it's starting out that way, but at some point, this is serious. I want this job.
Right. They could keep it cordial to the extent of, until it gets to the first primary, and then if it looks really wonky, there's a singular primary. Yeah.
And so maybe there's going to be some polling coming out.
Right. They may look at some early polling. Yeah.
And it's like Marsha's like, I'm not giving up my fucking Senate seat to run a half-ass race. She's going to be like, if she's going to do it, she's going to do it. Because she's giving up her Senate seat. He might be on an open seat, being that he could either run for his seat again or run for this seat. I don't know what his cycle is for his House seat.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And so if he's on the open end of his House seat, he's like, well, I mean, he could pull the Gloria Johnson and run for both at the same time and take the one that he wins that he likes better.
Is he the one that met his wife at the Future Farmers of America in like Gatlinburg or whatever?
I don't think that was him, but I do. That is a Republican here in Tennessee, but I don't remember who that is. It might be.
I was thinking it was that guy. I'm not sure.
That's so funny. Like, that is so funny. If it is or is, it doesn't really matter who it is. You understand, like, like how we know that? Do you know how we know that?
I think we saw it reported on.
We looked it up because my genius-ass wife said, is that his daughter or his wife?
No.
And I was like, that's a good question, because I was assuming it was his wife, but now that you say that, she is significantly younger than he is.
Well, I want to say we may have first looked at him because he was on, like, the electors ballot or whatever.
Right.
Like, what is this thing?
Right.
And who's this guy?
Right. That flyer that came here,
right.
And she said that, and then we started joking around about it, and then we started poking at it. Then we found out that yes, that's the whole history of that couple. Again, I don't remember if it's a Rose guy or somebody different. I'd have to go find that flyer. I've started throwing away flyers like an idiot. My bad, everybody. I threw that flyer away.
I was about to say you had a stack here for a while. It was a few months old.
I want to redo the room here at some point. I'm really excited. Like, I've got some fun ideas for some multimedia action, so that you can look at me and there's TV behind me, so that you can see what I want to show you on the TV behind me. Like, I've got some cool plans. I just, it's not remotely top priority to me.
Right.
10 million things going on. All right. I'm gonna call Jacob's office. I'm in. I will buy. Mayor Jacobs is kicking it off with a $10,000 donation to the pot. They're going to do this event 50-50. They're going to split the door 50-50, and they can spend that 50-50 to donate to who they choose. I like it. I think it's great.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Of course it won't happen.
I mean, I don't think Walls is in bad shape. I mean, he's still in decent shape for his age, but I don't know if he's in shape to bounce off the ropes and kind of do some of what they call like pratfall or whatever. So you kind of do that fake fall on your back, or it's a real fall, but you kind of like brace yourself to where it sounds really bad because the floors are kind of hollow. But
yeah, I don't know. This will be fun. I want it. Let's make it happen. I disagree with you, Miss Hat. This isn't Roman circus shit because you're trying to blame that on Jacobs. Walt started this one. I'm sorry. Walt started this.
I don't know. I'd have to see the clip you're talking about, but I don't know if he was necessarily trying to call out anybody.
Nobody particularly, but he was like I remember whatever, doesn't matter. The Gavin Newsom podcast has gotten a lot of coverage on Breaking Points and on my Crazy Libertarian Guys one, which is kind of fun.
I've heard some people where I guess weren't happy with a couple guests he's had on. They were like, "Wait, you had Charlie Kirk on and didn't ask him about this?" I haven't seen any of it.
I mean, that's a question. I mean, like that's a problem. Like that premise is a problem to me. Now, I will agree I will agree that it's a problem if you're going to have a guest on. Okay, so to me, so on a very broad scale, to me, I think Gavin Newsom has his eyes set on the White House, and this is part of his plan. He's going to do this podcast that gets him into the podcast universe, which a lot of politicians have failed to take advantage of the power that the podcast universe has.
I think so. Apparently Ted Cruz has his own podcast.
A lot
I don't realize how many politicians have.
Marsha does. Marsha's got one.
Yeah, I think I've heard you talk about Marsha's.
It's fucking awful. But I mean, but that's just it. Okay, like that's a good comparison. Like Marsha has the handful. Like I've listened to like a dozen. She's probably at like 50 or so right at this point. But she has like a dozen. I've listened to about a dozen of them, and like she'll pull in Marjorie Taylor Greene, or she'll pull in Bobart or whatever her name is, and she'll pull in this person, and it's just this really fluff. Oh, you went to this school and you did these things, and what are you working on in your neighborhood, and blah 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 blah. And it's just this really like you are obviously on the same team and you're hanging out talking about same team shit. There's no drama here. There's no excitement here. This is literally, I don't care what comes out of your mouth because you're going to say the things that you always say. This isn't new. This isn't enlightening in any way. Now, from what I've caught of I haven't listened to any of the entire episodes, but all the clips that have come out on the different Gavin Newsom podcast, he seems like me, honestly. Like when I have somebody that I have issues with. Like I've had people in this show with me. Briggs in that episode, as terrible as the internet connection was on it. Like I have a lot of issues with what he's doing. I wasn't mean. I wasn't rude. I wasn't going to be mean. I wasn't going to be rude. I was going to disagree with him on stuff. And that seems like what the Gavin Newsom one is. Like he's got people on that he's going to disagree with him. And he disagrees with them, but he doesn't pick a fight. And people want him, the Democrats at least want him to pick a fight. They want him to yell at Charlie Kirk and tell him Charlie Kirk's an idiot. And make a whole big stink of it. That's what they want. And he's not going to do that. I mean, it's
like I said, I haven't seen any criticism. I'm sorry. I think I may have kind of misspoke. I don't think there was necessarily a pushback of, hey, they should have tried to correct him and all this stuff. But I guess they saw some of the interviews. Like I said, I haven't seen it. But maybe they thought he was being too soft on, someone that is a controversial, an opposing guest, basically.
Right. And I mean, again, like there's to me, there's a fine line there because you want to be able to have a conversation with the person.
Right. Honestly, I'm not saying they should have attacked him or anything like that. I don't know if anybody's advocating for that kind of interview. I mean, I feel like there's definitely been calls for like, why are you even letting Steve Bannon on your show? No.
And honestly, one of the quotes from Newsom on it's like, I think it was the one with Waltz that the Waltz will fight anybody statement came out. I think it's on the one with Waltz. It's like, we as a party, this is Gavin Newsom's quote-ish, paraphrasing, like, we can't just pretend like these people don't exist. We can't just pretend like we can shut them down from being part of, like, the American culture.
Right.
Like, we can say they're wrong, and we can make our arguments for why we disagree with them and stuff like that. But we can't just be like, no, and ignore it as if that's going to make them go away. We need to be able to engage them where they are. And, I'm not a big Gavin Newsom fan as far as I know. I haven't done a lot of looking at him, but, like that seems like an accurate, logical stance. We've got to be able to engage with each other and got to be able to engage with the people that don't like me, which I think is what he's trying to do. He's more trying to open the door to people that he might pick up by having a Charlie Kirk or a Steve Bannon on than he is trying to keep the people that already like him happy. Does that make sense? That's my take on what he's trying to do. He's trying to see if he can
find some middle ground.
Not middle ground per se. He's just trying to find
middle ground voters. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. That's a perfect way to put it. He's trying to find some people that he might be able to convince he's right on a particular issue. He doesn't have to convince the lay standard Democrat voter to vote for him. They're already going to vote for him. And if they're not going to vote for him because he talked to Steve Bannon, then what are we doing? Like that's kind of that's my thoughts perhaps on it at least.
It's an issue. I'm not sure when it was announced or whatever, but apparently AOC came out and said that she would come to any kind of Republican district basically and have an open town hall.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about like last week, 2 weeks ago. Like,
right. But I guess I think it was within this past week or so that AOC was like, "Hey, if there's a district that your representative won't come." Oh, did you mention that last week?
Yeah, we were talking about that because I was trying to explain to you that I feel like it's a conservative effort by the Democratic Party.
Okay, sorry.
Because we were talking about Burchett not doing town halls.
Right.
He's never really done town halls.
Yeah.
And I was joking about how genius some of the memes were about the missing Tim Burchett stuff. But people are trying to like blow this thing out of proportion. Like, oh, Mr. Burchett's not doing town halls. He never did. But it's a conservative effort on the Democratic Party side to make reps doing town halls important again and make a point of reps that don't do town halls. Or if your rep does a town hall, go to it and make us think about the issues. That's been a conservative effort by the party. And that goes to now, like Tim Walz has been going to other districts and doing town halls. Like theoretically, I don't know, I don't think it has happened, but theoretically, Walz would come here to Knoxville because Burchett won't do one. Or AOC will come here to Knoxville and do a town hall for Tennessee District 2 voters because Burchett's not doing them. And it's a way to call out the fact that these people don't represent you anymore. It's an effort. It's a functional effort to make a stink. And I'm not disagreeing with the stink. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying like this is a functional thing that they're doing.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if it's done on an individual basis. Maybe it's a concerted party effort.
I believe it's a conservative party effort. That's my point. I believe it's a party effort. I don't believe it's just AOC individually wanting to do it on her own. I think it's she has aims bigger than what she is, and she wants to be a good Democratic Party member, and she wants to go out and do it because that's what they're doing right now.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay,
What?
Felt like you're disagreeing with me. Felt like you're saying that she's just doing it because it's the right thing to do.
No, I was saying that's possible. I'm not saying for sure why the hell she's doing it. I wasn't trying to put any kind of like motivation behind it. You're the one trying to read into motivations. I wasn't trying to disagree with you. I was just saying, okay, I don't. Right. That's a possibility.
You're right. It's me reacting.
I wasn't me pushing back on you. I was saying, okay.
You were pushing back on me a couple weeks ago when I brought it up, but that's kind of maybe why I was a little bit defensive. I apologize.
Okay.
Anyway, what else is going on?
Let's see.
There's so much stuff. There's so little stuff.
I saw something else going on the state level.
All right, so we'll go a little national for a second. The lawyer Jamie texted me and asked me a very ridiculously open-ended question, and this was on Tuesday when I was getting ready to go to city council, so I didn't have brain power to think about it. But he basically just said, are we in a constitutional crisis yet? And I was like, well, I don't know. I actually fully ignored him because I was not in the headspace to deal with it. But then after city council, when I text him back on it, it's like, I'm not trying to ignore your bait on this. And I know you were trying to bait me, but I presume you're referring to the intentional defiance of a court order, the whole deportation thing that happened earlier this week. And that's the more I've heard the details of that story, the more I'm confused procedurally than anything else. Like, I don't necessarily like the outcome of how this is going. I'm not technically okay with throwing human beings on a plane that we as the other populace have no idea who they actually are. Like, we don't know who these people actually are. Partially because they don't have documentation because they came here illegally, but partially because nobody's telling us who they actually are. Okay, we've captured these people that are illegal immigrants and we put them in a box. Well, who are they? Where'd they come from? You're telling us they're from this gang. I don't believe you. Can you give me a little bit more than you think they're part of this gang that you're deporting?
Yeah.
And now these people are in an El Salvador prison that is known for torturing people because Venezuela, where they came from, won't take them back. I'm having a little hard time with like the human rights violations and stuff that are going on here. I don't disagree that that's a problem. However, I also have a weird spot for, like, I don't understand, like, how does due process work for non-American citizens? Like, you're
still guaranteed due process, supposedly.
Now, for green card For green card and certain visa holders, yes, but I think if you're here fully illegally, like if you snuck across the border in the middle of the night, I don't believe the Constitution guarantees you any rights, including due process.
I believe due process is entitled to anyone.
You're
under the jurisdiction of America. You're still supposed to go through.
That's a good question.
Process.
I don't know the right answer to that one, and that's where it gets murky super fast.
Pretty sure anybody and everyone has. That's essentially. I mean, you're just a tourist visiting here, which I guess. Well, no. Depending on the country, you may or may not have to have a visa just to visit.
But you have to have. I mean, there's some.
But you're still subject to, and still have to have due process to be, I guess, essentially, deported or ordered out of the country.
I don't know if that's true. Like honestly, and not to be like.
I think from what I've read of all this kind of like questioning, that I think I've read legal scholars and immigration lawyers or whatever that there's still supposed to be some kind of due process. Because essentially, it would be kind of like you were saying before that anybody, like a no-name person, could just be like, okay, well,
right,
we believe that person to have committed a crime. We believe this person to be.
Right, because I mean, I agree.
Illegally,
100%.
They're just gone.
Because the biggest fear in this to me is that one of those people is a natural-born U.S. citizen whose parents might have been here illegally, whatever, but looks and sounds and has a tattoo that looks like they're part of this thing and that the other, and without any due process, we don't know if one of them is an American citizen.
All right,
and that's a problem. That's a real fucking problem to me. I also like the idea of we're invoking this weird. It's not weird. It's actually a totally logical. What was it called? I'm trying to remember the
Alien and Sedition Act.
Right. Like it's not. It doesn't have a good history of use, and so I'm going to assume that its current use is just as bad as the historical use of it. Because when was the last time it was used?
World War II.
How was it used?
To do Japanese internment.
Not just Japanese internment.
We also had Nazi internment.
Right, German.
Like here in Appalachian Mountains, there was a Nazi camp.
Yeah, no, not Nazi, German, period. It wasn't Nazi.
Sorry, German. A German war camp. Prisoner of war camp. It was mostly from the European theater.
Well, that's different, though. But that's we brought him here to put him in war. There were German and Italians whom were rounded up and put into camps. There were American citizens of German and Italian descent that there was concern that they may be allied with their home country during the war.
I think we had some of those as well.
Right. Same thing. That's the Japanese internment thing, that we had a German and Italian version of the same thing, much smaller scale than the Japanese one. Why? Because it's easier to tell the difference, sadly. Like, that's the facts of it. It's like, well, we know these are Asian at least. They look different. That's enough to put them in this camp. That's fucked up, and it's not a great part of our history. But at the same time, it's like it was started. First use of it was in War of 1812, which had been French internment, because we were fighting the French. No, we were fighting the British again.
Yeah,
with the French. Was the French on our side? I'm confused on where the French were in that one. Complicated French history. And so I like it. It is a stretch of the use of this. Like I could understand the premise of why the Alien whatever Act exists. It's a stretch of the use, and the previous uses were bad, so I have a problem with it.
Yeah,
because you're trying to.
I got a sense they're trying to use this as a kind of way to make some of the powers more legal. It's kind of like, well, we're under these kind of what would be considered "quote unquote" kind of wartime powers,
right? But we're at war with a gang and a nation.
Yeah,
like
as I said, this wasn't even done like after 9/11. When there was the whole "quote unquote" war on terror, which I think may have been a semi-declared war.
I know it's a fully declared war. It's just you have no official enemy, so it's hard to actually have a fucking war.
Right.
Which again, I think that in of itself makes no sense. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like functionally on a practical basis, like we're making like the phrasing sounds good because that is a problem and it's something that needs to be addressed. But if you're going to give it war powers, no, thank you.
Right.
Because war powers are serious things, and they have serious repercussions, and we do seriously bad things when we're playing war power games.
I want to say, Trump posted something on Truth Social today about, I think it was basically about deporting American citizens that are convicted of like these Tesla domestic terrorism crimes, that they may send them to this like El Salvador prison.
I did get into
and there was a question of whether or not that was legal to send American citizens to foreign prisons.
No, it can't be.
Yeah, that's I think the one legal scholar or whatever they kind of asked, they're like, that's outside of kind of the legal bounds of American law, I guess.
Yeah, it cannot, like, gotta, like, that's, I don't know, like, okay, so here's the real question, like, on all this stuff, like, I've accidentally come across as a pro-Trump guy a time or two, and I don't mean to by any stretch of the imagination. But I guess the question, like, and this is a question I think that AC asked many years ago. It's like, where do you draw the line? Like, where is the too far that you feel like you have to do something? And I don't know the answer to that for me, because I'm really not sure. Like, I really don't know. Like, it's a deep and impactful question, and I don't know how to answer that. I don't know where. Like, I have a problem with, like, the Khalid we were talking about last week. Columbia student, has a green card, not a visa, a green card. Married an American citizen, has a baby on the way. Like, that's fucked up. Like, it's not okay. Like, where does it, where's the line, and what do I do when the line is crossed? Because, I mean, I could sit back and be like, well, I didn't vote for this guy. Because I didn't. But, like, where, like, I don't know. Like, that's where I'm, that's, I don't know, it's a big question. It's a hard question.
Yeah, it's not an easy question.
But, like,
But you also don't want to, like, pigeonhole yourself like, oh, well, if they do just one thing.
Right, but it's not even, I don't know. Because I don't know. Peasant farmer is the right answer. I mean, my French farmer.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, the for me, the right thing to do for me and my family would probably be just to turn this off and never do this again. That's the right answer.
Yeah.
Like, because we don't matter. No, not enough people listen to you. Thank you for everybody that does. But at the end of the day, not enough people listen to me that anything that I say is really going to matter. And maybe that's the fun part of this for me, is that it doesn't matter. And if it got to a point where it did, I might quit. Like, honestly, because, like, there is stuff that's wrong and I have issues with.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, like, where's the hill I'm willing to die on?
That's that old phrase, you got to pick your battles.
No, it's not. It's bigger than that, though. It's like,
I think it's true to an extent that, like I said, you can have those certain lines that you don't want to have crossed.
Right, but what happens if they do? Like, what do I do if they do?
That's situational.
I get on here and I yell and I scream. Like, I mean,
there's limits to what you can do.
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you
do what you've done in the past. You've had, legislation that's come down that you disagreed with, and you've reached out. At least on the political side, you've been able to reach out to your representatives, get clarification on it, and actually, have some pushback on it.
Yeah, but there comes a point where it's like, I don't know. I think it's bigger than that, though. Like, when is it? I don't know.
No, it's a question. It's a question you've got to ask of yourself of how much of my time and effort, is it worth me doing for this cause that may or may not bring me much, fruition, or may not come to fruition. Yeah,
but again, I guess it kind of goes back to I don't know, like, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's the dad part of me and the legacy kind of shit. It's like, what am I doing? Like, what are we leaving to our kids kind of stuff? Like, I don't know. I'm freaking out a little bit.
Right.
I guess finally it's getting to the point where, I don't know if I'd like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I could, like, I don't know. I guess the was it Luigi, our Luigi character?
Yeah.
Like, when it happened, like, even at the time when it happened, I was like, I get it. I'm not okay with it, but I get it. And how many of those I'm not okay with it, but I get it starts happening to when that becomes norm and expected and maybe even needed in the cleansing of a system kind of way.
I mean, on certain issues, I think, we've kind of, you hear it talked about from time to time, a level of kind of desensitization.
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 Yeah, but
I've kind of wondered about just in like level of violence, in the 90s and aughts or whatever. They talked about, music and video games that were violent, that was increasing violence. But you go back decades, they used to have, I think I mentioned earlier, they used to have like public executions that people would go to. So I kind of like
fun
this.
To see.
But I think there's always kind of been this kind of like level of, kind of.
Okay, so
of want of seeing some of that.
I think one of the things to be like an example, as I understand it, which I'm 100% acknowledge that I'm terrible at international affairs kind of shit, but like the Saudi royal family, as I understand it, really doesn't care about Gaza. They really don't, but their people do, and so as a royal family in that governmental style system, as much as they don't actually care about it, they have to act like they do to contain their population from killing them and replacing them with some other system of government. That's the kind of premise that I'm concerned about right now. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, at what point does the failures of this government become to the point of we have to kill it? And we have to start killing to get it done because we can't stand this as a people anymore. And I think it goes on, and it's on both sides of the quote unquote political aisle. Like, how long can we continue to do this shit and bodies don't start literally piling up? Like, I think the Jan 6 thing, like the idea that the Jan 6 thing happened at all is that we are primed for the idea of it. We are primed for the idea of a bloody revolution. I'm not excited about it. I don't want it to be. And whether we can blame that on Trump or not is irrelevant to the point. The point is that there's that level of dissatisfaction with that much of the population that happened. And then the guy that was theoretically to blame for it got elected president again 4 years later. That's crazy. And we keep running down this rabbit hole. And I just feel like at some point, it's going to be like Jan 6 is going to be a joke in hindsight.
I think we're going to start to see more of just kind of like economic kind of protest, So we've started to see more of just kind of like petty theft of people, kind of like crimes of opportunity, basically. What you're going to see is when you see more and more people on hard times that, they're not malicious, but people that are just going out and stealing food.
I agree with that, but I think, I don't know, I think like this, like.
But I think that's going to grow because people see it happening more often, and it becomes more acceptable, basically. When people are like, oh, well, it's this Acme grocery store that's screwing us all over, this big box store that's screwing us all over, so I don't have any, remorse for stealing from them.
Right, but when Acme grocery store becomes to state of Tennessee government, when Acme grocery store turns into the federal government,
right,
it's going to get dark quick.
I agree.
And it's going to, like, and especially with Trump flexing these weird fucking powers and talking about deporting U.S. citizens. Like, you can't deport a U.S. citizen. That doesn't make any sense. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
What do we do?
Who knows what's in this Alien Sedition Act that we're now, I guess, under?
Well, I mean, you didn't deport them, you interned them. But even that, when you start in, that's like, I mean, it's scary. The prison industrial complex as it is already scary.
Yeah, I think I saw a story about, it wasn't just like, kind of Hispanic migrants but it was like Russians, Chinese, and like some Europeans that were down in like El Salvador that were scrambling around to different embassies trying to like find asylum anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, like, what do you do? Like, what do we do when it gets there? Like, right. I have problems. I don't like the way, I mean, hell, I'm by comparison to a lot of people I know, I'm pretty soft on Trump. But I have a podcast, and I'm willing to say bad things about Trump on the podcast. What happens when he comes after me? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It scares me, the idea that I'm not comfortable. I couldn't say that it couldn't happen.
Right.
With the way things are going. Do I think it's going to happen? No, because if Trump knew I existed, that'd be the most crazy thing in and of itself.
Right.
But if somehow he ended up knowing I exist, it's not going to be for a good thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, like, that's frightening. Just as, like, as as a guy who's trying to grind out and take care of his family, who's dumb enough to sit down here in my basement, get drunk, and talk shit.
I think I saw recently that like 60 Minutes, I think, still is fighting their lawsuit with him. I think, a couple of other lawsuits he's had against media organizations have pretty much been dropped or settled out of court, basically.
I mean, to me, though, like the saving grace of all this is that nobody in the Republican Party has the fucking talent, for lack of a better word, that he has. I don't know. Maybe this is my wishful thinking move here. I don't think he is going to try a third term. I don't think any real efforts are going to be for third term stuff. I think there's any.
He thinks there's enough support for it.
I really don't.
He would stay, be like, oh, they love me, they want me. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it for you guys.
I think the ego already did what it needed to do. He didn't leave a loser. He left I can't do it again. I hope so. That's my hope in all this.
Right.
I don't think he wants to do it. He's old enough as it is. He wants to ride off to the sunset. And I mean, again, there is.
He may take the gracious bow. Be like, I really appreciate it. I don't know you guys want me to do this again, but I'm going to be the bigger man, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it for a third time.
And part of his ego is going to be like, do it, man, do it. But the same part of him is going to be like, I don't know. We'll see. Because the question, honestly, here's the reality to me is if the Democrats continue on the lawfare side of things, I think you will. Because he's gonna be like, well, I'm fucking 80. I don't want to go to jail for the last 10 years, 15, 20 years I'm alive. I don't want to die in prison. The only way I'm not dying in prison is to stay president. Like, seriously. I
got to stay until I cry.
Seriously. Like, I mean, realistically, like, if the Democratic Party wants to put him in jail and continues to run that as part of their political campaign, of wanting to punish him for his, quote, crimes.
I know he probably wouldn't do it. Could he kind of like not really step aside but allow someone else in the Republican Party to be president and he just be vice president? I think he still has immunity as vice president.
Ooh, maybe.
Ooh, did I just get a good idea?
I don't know.
I don't think he would ever be happy to be vice president, but that's one way for him, I guess, to retain immunity after post-presidency. Whatever.
If that's the solution, I'll take it. I'm just saying, like, but right. To me, like that, to me, the only thing that makes logical sense from what I understand of his perspective, which obviously is bullshit because I don't understand anything, but from what I understand of all of this stuff going on is, dude doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in jail. And if he doesn't have to worry about going to jail after he steps aside as president, I think he will be done. He might still play around and help out and do the politics stuff. But at the end of the day, like nobody can do what he does on the Republican Party the way he does it. Politically speaking, nobody can do it. J.D. Vance, what's the other guy? What was the guy that was running the primary?
Ramaswamy?
Yeah. He was the closest to him, and he was nowhere near as good.
To his character?
To the idea of
Nikki Haley stuck around the longest, and she took away good chunks in a number of states.
No, not taking from him, being him in a different version.
Okay.
Nobody like.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too many politicians that are like him in general,
right? Because he's not really a politician. I mean, well, he's always been a politician, but a business version of politician, whatever. But like, he's just not. Like, he's never. I don't know. He's not. And like that's the saving grace of this. Like, people who have tried to emulate him and win state races and house races and governor's races are not winning races. He's the only one that can get away with a grab the pussy comment as a Republican. He's the only one that can do it. And so that's the saving grace to all this, is that this is done. This era should be on its last legs. And I think he's acting like that, honestly. Like, I think that's what he's doing. He's like, this is the last throes of what I want to try to get done. The whole Doge thing's weird. I don't understand him and Elon's thing. But, like, I don't know. He just had like 2-hour conversation with Putin. Wonderful phone call. It's an amazing phone call. Perfect phone call. Best phone call ever was. And then immediately there was some back and forth about the Kremlin put out a press release about what they demanded to him. And he's like, no, they didn't tell me that. That's not what we talked about.
No, did he publicly refute it?
Although just a couple of specifics. Apparently, the Kremlin wants zero aid from the West to Ukraine.
Yeah, I heard like a small list of some of Russia's demands.
I don't know. I guess what's the question is okay. So he had a 2-hour phone call with Putin. Good or bad? Regardless of the content of the phone call, is that a good thing or a bad thing? That he spent time talking to him.
Good.
Agreed. I feel like a lot of people don't think that was a good thing. I think I don't know. I've made the jokingly argument before. I think we are on the edge of ending the Ukraine war. Now the arguments of whether it ended well, quote unquote, is going to be argued for years. I don't think. I mean,
I think it's a mistake going in without anyone else from Europe, I guess, being a part of this kind of peace talks.
Sure. Zelensky's going to be mad about it. A lot of Europe's going to be mad about it. But Ukrainian and Russian soldiers have stopped dying, so that's a win.
What are you talking about?
Could stop dying would be a win.
I was about to say,
if we get there.
They're in a really weird, limited ceasefire where they've kind of half agreed not to attack civilian infrastructure.
Right. Well, there's 2,500 Ukrainian soldiers inside the Russian border that are completely surrounded by Russian soldiers right now.
I've seen that, and I've seen reports that wasn't true. I saw a report that I think it's that same area that Russia apparently turned off gas in a gas pipeline and walked through this giant gas pipeline to get in behind Ukrainian lines. But I think I saw a story today that U.S. intelligence have confirmed that no, they're not surrounded, but who knows?
I don't know.
It's an active war front, basically.
Yeah, the fog of war is a real thing.
Right. That was one thing I was curious about, if Ukraine still held any territory.
This ad cracks me up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We got the TV on in the background watching basketball, but this TikTok has been doing a lot of ads.
Yeah, I saw something recently how much money they have spent on all this ads.
Yeah, and it's all ads about this is where TikTok is great for small business.
I don't know where I would be without TikTok.
You would be on Instagram or YouTube or some other channel.
Right. I don't have any other social media platform to advertise my business on.
Well, I mean, honestly, if those people are real people,
I get it to an extent, but
if they're real people, it's probably true.
Right.
But to say that they couldn't have had the same impact on a different platform is probably not true.
Like a business, a newspaper going out of business, and they're like, "Well, you guys shut down, the newspaper, and now I'm all fucked. I can't put out ads and coupons in the Sunday Weekly."
I posted a video. That's actually literally the ad was. It was a fairly attractive girl that does mechanic work. It's well, I do. I posted videos on TikTok of me working on cars in my bra. And that brought me a ton of business. Well, yeah, you could have done that on Facebook or YouTube or anywhere else, and it would have done the same thing. But that's not the way the ad sells it. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know. This has been. I don't know. I feel like I've been pretty consistent on the whole Ukraine thing. I don't think Ukraine's going to be happy. I don't think Europe's going to be happy. Hell, I don't think Russia or the U.S. is really going to be happy, but I think if we could end this thing in some way, shape, or form, it's a win. And I think Trump might get a Nobel Prize out of it. I really do.
I don't think so.
I think that's the game here, but...
if it's able to be seen as the world that he somehow kind of unilaterally got peace to stick... Like I said, I think that's a mistake not having any other European, because you look at the Gaza negotiations that have been going on for months and months. A lot of times there's at least 8 or 10 countries that were involved in these kind of peace talks.
Right, but how do I do this?
It's simple. You need some kind of mediators. I think it's a better option to have more voices at the table, because you can have calmer voices and find kind of middle ground amongst different areas.
People that have less direct interest and people that have more direct interest are all kind of together, and you can kind of break it down. Those things are fair. I agree with that. But at the same time, it's who really has who has the true most interest in Ukraine right now? I think it's fair to say the U.S. and at least monetarily, the U.S. has the most interest in what's going on in Ukraine right now.
What?
We spent the most money on trying to keep the Russians out of it.
Europe's given 60% compared to us. If you add them up collectively.
Okay. So, but individually, who spent the most money?
As a single country, I think the U.S.
Okay. That's kind of... Anyway.
Okay. How many other conflicts have we asked for money back? Did we ask Iraq for money back when we were there fighting? All the aid given to any other countries?
No.
Have we ever been like, hey, you kind of owe us for that? So
I mean, I don't think we asked for it back. I think I think it was. This is why I enjoy Trump, is because he doesn't pretend like Bush did that this wasn't an oil seizing operation. He doesn't pretend like we weren't going there to make money off of what they had to give us.
I don't think we got much oil. But I don't know. It's been 15 years since.
I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. That's one of those. I think that's the fun. That's the fun part of Trump to me, is that he's transparent about what he does, instead of pretending like this is some, positive world care about human rights cause. It's not. We have some financial interest in this. There's something about this that matters to us, and whatever that is, I'm just going to say what it is, and we're going to get it if that's what we're doing.
That's possible. I don't know.
That's my pessimist take on all of our foreign interaction.
You start forcing people into negotiations. That's when negotiations don't stick.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fair. They may not.
I got an interview of a guy that was talking about how they make, a former CIA, about how they make different contacts or whatever. Now they kind of have like different levels, kind of have like that friendlier kind of type, and they have the area where you basically kind of using a coercion to either gain information or whatever, exert power, influence over someone. And that's kind of like that's the easiest one to lose. Because essentially, once you have something hanging over somebody's head, if they're able to, kind of get rid of that threat of like, hey, I've got these pictures of you or whatever.
Right.
If they're able to make that go away, all of a sudden you have no influence over them anymore.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Be interesting. I mean, like everyone wants there to be an end to the fighting on any kind of war front, basically.
Yeah. It goes back to my stupid argument of like, what good is any of this for me and you? But I don't know. That's a separate. We've had that argument 1,000 times now, so
it's complicated.
We can move past that. You'd started to say something about you saw some state stuff going on that you wanted to bring up.
There was an education bill. I'm not sure if it's passed, where they talked about increasing teacher pay, but it would have to come out of the local LEA's budget. Basically, the state wasn't going to kick in any money for it, but it was incentivizing performance-based bonuses for teachers.
Yeah, go fuck yourself, state. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I can see it being a nice carrot, but it could also... I mean, it's probably 10 years ago.
If they're going to say you have to pay more and they're not going to pay it, then they can go fuck themselves.
I don't know if it was necessarily requiring it, or if it was just kind of like adding an option. That I think it was a way. I think the localities could opt into it, but
localities
they would still have to fund it themselves if they wanted to do, incentive-based bonus structure for teachers.
Okay, so on as far as I understand it, on a practical level, Knox County schools could pay their teachers whatever the fuck they want to pay. They're obliged by the state to pay a minimum of X.
All right.
But they could pay X, 2X if they wanted to.
As long as they got the money for it.
Right. Knox County would have to make up, like, the state's going to pay X.
Right. And
if Knox County wants to pay 2X, then Knox County has to pay X on top of the X that the state is putting in.
Right. Now, I'm going to be reminded, it was some kind of like suburb of Atlanta where there were some teachers that got into some hot water for like testing fixes. I don't know if it was necessarily related to bonuses, but I think there was some kind of like monetary incentive for, their class or their test scores improving year over year or whatever. And I think it had to do with they were like giving out copies of the test to an extent, or I don't know if they were just kind of like misgrading the test.
I don't know. I mean, to be like, yeah, I don't know.
I remember back when we had Scantrons. I remember like the teacher had their key where it was just like hole punches and like where the answers, and they would just lay that on top of their Scantron or your Scantron.
Right.
And just kind of like mark.
Which theoretically means if you just bubble in everything, you're going to have everything right.
Right. Assumingly the teacher looks at that before they
but I would
put
say,
their
like,
thing down.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I like the idea of incentivizing teacher performance, but at the same time, I would think that in this
Well,
day
you
and
gotta
age, we're wanting to see increases in it.
You have to have a
way
metric.
to fudge it.
The idea of the day is you have to have metrics.
Right.
Like, how does the metrics work to quote unquote grade the performance? I don't know. Like, I mean, it's a tough.
I think that was actually another part of it as well. I think they wanted to kind of de-emphasize. I think it was maybe more so kind of the end of high school type testing, and focus more on like ACT and SAT.
Which that's no good.
Right. And I think it was actually local rep Sam McKenzie that was like, we have a lot of students, that sure, the ACT and SAT is great for kids that are going to college, but a lot of these kids aren't going to college.
Right.
So the ACT and SAT, does nothing for them.
Right.
It's not going to show, or it's not going to show us how well they finished in their, woodshop class when they graduated.
Right. Oh, like, yeah. Because again, I mean, it goes back to like, what are we trying to fucking do? What are we trying to create? Right. How do we make a metrics for what we're trying to create?
I like the idea of trying to de-emphasize TCAP scores.
I know.
Because I want to say there were certain times where your TCAP score kind of filtered in as part of like 25% of your end of the year grade.
Right. Some classes it does, some classes it doesn't. I don't remember what the rules are on it, but there are some complicated whatevers. This is the decentralization argument to its core. Yeah, I don't know. The people, I like the people who are in the classroom. How do we figure out how to incentivize the best result for the student? That's the question. It's always the question. And the further away from the student, I feel like the harder that is to do. Now, the closer to the student, the easier it is to scam. So there's like, it's tough. Like, it's a tough balance, and I don't know what the right answer is.
All right.
Let me be honest, but it's like
you don't want to have a class that just focuses on the TCAP throughout the whole year, but you still got to find a way to figure out. What
again, it goes back to that stupid question I ask all the time. It's like, does it matter how my kid? All right, so an 8th grader in Knox County schools does a set of testing this year. Does it matter at all how my 8th grader compares to an 8th grader in Cock County, an 8th grader in Hamblin County, and 8th grader in Shelby County? What does it matter that they test similarly? What does it matter that one tests better than the other? Like, what does it actually mean that they're testing better than each other in a certain test?
That's where I guess without those results, you wouldn't know to look at a district that's looking great, that's doing great.
But
I think I've seen like,
but again, like, does it mean they're doing great or they're not doing great? Like, what does that mean? Does it mean they're doing great because they're getting more kids into college? Does it mean they're doing great because they're getting more kids to work? Does it mean they're getting great because those kids are doing better in high school? And what does doing better in high school mean? Like, what does that actually mean? Because at the end of the day, if you're a high school student in Memphis and you're going to work for FedEx to drive a truck around town, versus you're a high school student in Knoxville and you're going to drive a FedEx or a truck around town, what's the difference? Like, what does it mean? Like, that's like, what is the value? Like, what is it like? What is the value of what is the value of the metric that we made up?
Depends on what you're testing. Like, I get what you're saying. It's hard to take a senior level or I don't even think they do the TCAPs at your senior year, but end of high school testing. I understand that it's hard to take that metric and push it out 5 years and look at where these students are 5 years later. But just looking at testing scores that they're doing at the time, to go back to what I was trying to say, I think if you see a county, a certain district that is excelling in reading mathematics, that's where you can stop and be like, hey, are you guys doing something a little differently? Have you guys had a seminar on this recently? Or are you guys doing more co-teaching? Like, what are you guys doing that all of a sudden your students are doing great, and vice versa?
Are you guys cheating on the testing?
That's something where you can do. I'm sure there's a level of skepticism if you see a district that goes, from 60% to 97%. It's like, hold on, something's not adding up here, literally, in your math.
Oh, these are the jokes, people.
Right. Yeah, I've seen a couple stories recently about parts of Alabama that that have been contradictory to what we've seen in some the nationwide kind of reading and math scores. You've heard talk about that have been still kind of stagnant since COVID. That we have certain districts in the U.S. that they're actually seeing vast improvements in reading and mathematics. So that's where where those metrics can be beneficial, and trying to find where a certain school is at, and kind of these. And a certain set of metrics that you can argue are good or bad, whether how much they're really testing for reading comprehension, math, etc. I mean, I knew a good bit of my standardized math stuff. So maybe 1 out of 10 I would just guess on, because I knew I didn't have time to try to do the math on all of them. So I would just kind of do that number doesn't quite look right. I'm going to guess this. Well, I mean, so I had more time later on.
Right. I remember I remember being taught cursory, especially in the math standardized test. I remember being taught read the question and look at the answers and eliminate the ones that make no sense. And the idea is whatever it is, I've tried, I can't remember, I can't think of a ridiculous example off the top of my head, but it was something the answer is a quarter, a whole, 4 or 40, right? So 1/4, 1, 4, 40 were the possible answers. And in reading the question, it's clear that this is a big number,
right?
So you could go ahead and remove the 1 and you can remove half the answers just from the very general part of the question.
Right.
And is this 4 or 40? Well, it's 80 divided by 2, but it's a very complicated way of asking 80 divided by 2. And it's 80 divided by 2 can't be a quarter, can't be 1.
Right.
So at minimum, it's a 50-50 guess here. Do I understand the math? Nope.
Right.
I do understand how to eliminate what isn't good math. I don't know. I don't know.
No, we've talked about it. I think trying to make a quote unquote standardized test for anybody, it's hard to do. I mean, you have just talked about just different learning styles that people have.
But yeah, I don't know. And again, this is where I get in trouble, and I acknowledge my bias in this. Is to me, I want to know, as an adult human being, is this person a person that is capable of doing work? I understand, I 100%, I 10,000% understand that my bias in the education conversation is economics. All I care about in education is economics. How does this help? How does this help the economy as a whole? That is my bias on it. Help me understand how our education system helps the economic system of the United States, so that we can all be wealthier people, that we can have a better level of wealth, and we can all be more comfortable in our finances and stuff like that. That is a complete 1,000% bias that I have with the education system. It doesn't make sense to me in a universal education system to educate for art. It doesn't make sense to me to educate for hobby knowledge. It makes sense to me to educate for functional citizens that contribute to the machine. If that's how our testing works, then I guess I'm on board. I just don't think that's how our testing works. And so I don't know. That's my bias, and I get it. I understand. I have a bias on it, and it's not the best bias to have on it. And I say that knowing how important art is to general education. Art is very, very, very important to general education. I wouldn't be who I am today without music. And
I want it taught in school.
I'm not saying I want it taught in school, but I want to say I want to know the math on why art is important to general education. Because I will make that argument to death.
I think you just said it yourself. You wouldn't be where
Yes,
you are without.
I will make that argument to death that art is important to general education. And there's a lot of math, or there's a lot of studies that go into saying that music specifically helps people with math. I use math all the time, every day. That's part of what my life is. It helps with conceptual understanding of topics, of concepts. You have a concept that's very concrete in concept, but you want to have a conceptual understanding of the concept. Art helps you take the concept and expand it into a deeper knowledge of it. I think art is super important in lower education, and we should focus on those things and pay attention to those things. But again, at the end of the day, my argument is that is for economic gain. And if that's the point of the system, then let's lean into that point of the system. Because I will defend to the death how important the arts are to economics. Full stop. Speaking of art and full economics, Big Ears coming Thursday. Big Ear starts Thursday.
Yeah.
Huge economic impact right now because art stuff. Because we like to be entertained.
Saw something about SC1 Knox. What's it called? It says something like they started out with a bang, so I don't know if they had their season opener or if they just had a pregame get together.
They're away for the first two. I'm guessing that the league.
It made it sound like they had some event recently that was kicking off the season
last weekend.
Okay.
Because they didn't get their beer permit correctly, but they still got their beer permit correctly for a special event on the streets in Knoxville. They shut down a stretch of Central between Jackson and Willow, I think is the name of the road. That stretch of the Old City. They shut down a stretch of the Old City and did a block party for a preseason kickoff thing last weekend. So last Saturday, you could be on the street in the Old City drinking a beer legally.
Nice.
But that was their preseason kickoff, and then they're away. They're playing away games, and I think the league scheduled them away because they're not going to be their home stadium won't be available until like week 3 or 4 of the soccer season for them. All right, get weird, buddy.
Boom. Oh, load up. Quirky live stream that lets viewers help fish is a hit with millions.
Quickie live stream.
Quirky. Sorry.
Quirky. Helps people fish.
That lets viewers help fish is a hit.
Let's
so we got a central Dutch city of Utrecht installed a quote-unquote fish doorbell on a river lock that lets viewers of an online live stream alert authorities to fish being held up as they make their springtime migration to shallow spawning grounds. The idea is simple. An underwater camera at the lock sends live footage to a website. When somebody watching the site sees a fish, they can click a button that sends a screenshot to organizers. When they see enough fish, they alert the water worker who opens the lock to let the fish swim through.
All right, so the idea is...
kind of like it's like crowdsourcing, I guess, a fish lock monitor, or lock monitor kind of.
Right, so the lock is just there, and whether a boat comes or not, the lock just stays where it is.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that like in the springtime. I guess they have less boats coming through, so I guess the fish will then pile up there if because they won't open up the lock until there's a boat that needs to come through.
Okay, all right, that's kind of
so this
fun.
Allows to kind of like crowdsource people watching it and be like, hey, there's like 50 fish sitting there, like, hey, why don't you go open up the lock just because the boat's not there?
We could put something very similar together with KPD sharing their city surveillance stuff. Call in a tip. Same thing. Every camera that they have, I can have on my computer, and I can sit at my house. It's the same thing.
I don't see it as the same thing. No. You're talking about giving access to thousands of cameras versus this is one camera.
I mean, I'm sure there's more than... I'm sure
half the time it's apparently pretty cloudy.
I'm sure it's hard to see on the underwater camera. I agree with that. But I'm sure there's more than one lock, too. It's people who are interested in a certain subsect of communal good And if you have time and want to sit here and help us out with this communal good.
There's a number of live streams. You can get on like all the TDOT websites. I'm sure there's that one at Market Square. There's like one of the news channels that always shows that live camera. There's like a camera at Ripley's. There's plenty of cameras to get on if you want people watch.
Sure, but I want the same ones that KPD has. That's all I was trying to say. Anyway, I think it's fun. That's fun. I like that story. Give us one more. We'll get in.
There was another one. Right, I got Jerry convicts thief who stole golden toilet from English palace. A thief who swiped a golden toilet from an English palace was convicted Tuesday along with an accomplice who helped cash in on the spoils of the 18-carat work of art insured for nearly £5 million, more than $6 million.
So is it a working toilet?
I think it was, let's see here.
Or was it like a display piece?
Had used the fully functioning, one-of-a-kind latrine as he did reconnaissance at a palace, the country mansion where British wartime leader Winston Churchill was born. The day before the theft, prosecutors said he described the experience as splendid. I'm assuming that was his reconnaissance shit he's talking about. Yeah, I guess he returned the next day, and with at least 2 other men armed with sledgehammers and a crowbar, they smashed a window and pried the toilet from its plumbing within 5 minutes, leaving a damaging flood in their wake as they escaped in stolen vehicles.
So they stole cars too, sons of bitches.
I'm assuming, yeah, I guess they'd already had stolen vehicles there.
I mean, I don't know. You stole somebody else's thing. I'm good with you being convicted of something. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm not complaining.
Glad you reiterated that you're against
theft.
Yeah. Cool.
I mean, the idea that somebody built a golden toilet's got its own problems. I mean, that level of wealth that you need to shit on gold is kind of problematic in its own right.
Somebody had one in a tower named after themselves too.
Yeah. And they should be hated for such things. All right, everybody, that's the show. Last call, friend. Anything else?
I think that was it.
I mean, I'd poop in a gold toilet if I had the chance. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like, I don't even know where to go from there. Gold toilets, everybody. Get you one. They're somehow it's better than a porcelain one. I can't imagine it is. It's got to be about the same process. Anyway, almost agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check out what we got going on there. Holaroo 25 is upon us. Register to race with us in the Derby race. It's going to be super fun. Or come out and vend your wares if you're a vendor. You can register for that on the website, holaroo.co as well. And if nothing else, just come hang out May 17th in the great and awesome historic Happy Holler. Come join us. It's going to be a good time. And we're going to have booze. Fingers crossed, hopefully. I'll report again on that in 2 weeks. But we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We hope you keep listening. If you want to tell your friends about us, almostagreement at gmail.com. If you want to email me about something cool. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. And we'll talk to you soon.